Welcome to the Be Your Own Answer podcast, empowering good people like you to amplify your voice, your message, your movement. We believe that when 10,000 uncommon leaders step into high-level platforms, we will transform and heal communities across the planet. It's time to be your own answer. And now your host, Narissa Street.
Hi, so excited that you've tuned in again to the podcast that you know and love. My name is Narissa Street, and you know that we are here listening to uncommon women who are doing amazing things in their industries. As you know, I believe that if we get 10,000 women to accept their leadership and get them on 10,000 stages, we will transform the world. So it is my honor and my pleasure to bring to you today the incomparable Toy Lei. How are you?
Hi, what's up?
Okay, so I'm going to slightly geek a little bit here. Toy is going to tell you about herself, but I'm just going to geek a little bit here about how amazing she is and the work that she's already done in storytelling. But Toy, please tell our audience about yourself.
I'm an actor and a director. I guess you would know me more as a director, but I came to directing only after being an actor for a long time, and I'm still an active actor. So I still audition quite often and whatnot, and try to make my way there. But I came to filmmaking from the behind the camera standpoint because I was tired of being cast as the tiger mom and or the manicurist. And I was like, this is not what I became an actor to do, was to be like, do your homework. That's not what I wanted to do. So and I didn't want to keep waiting for someone to give me a role that I wanted to do. And so I just started making my own stuff. So now I'm a filmmaker as well, making my own stuff.
Well, okay, so the thing that I think that is really amazing about your work is in the pieces that you're in. So I do know you as both the actor, but more as a director. In the pieces that you've been in, you have been an award-winning, performer. And I think it's really, really key for people to understand that it's quite okay to be accomplished in some way in the work that you're doing and still be unsatisfied with it, especially if it is not in alignment with who you are. And that is exactly what it is, because the work that you're leaning into now, I think is really amazing because a lot of women are not yet known for it. So can you talk a little bit about what you're doing now and what's exciting you about what you're doing now?
I do love making my films. Mm-hmm. And it's not that I wouldn't make other people's films, but I rarely get presented also as a director with making films that I moved to Los Angeles to make, right? So like my big thing is that I moved to LA because I was in New York before, and I moved to LA to make science fiction and action movies. Okay. Now I could have stayed in New York, but at the time they were making Law and Order and Woody Allen, and that's all. Right? That's pre-Marvel. So, and then, of course, right after I left, they started making Marvel in New York, which is, I, as an actor or a director, still don't really get to make a lot of science fiction or action stuff. So I like making my movies. In the meanwhile, it fills my soul, my creative soul. It doesn't mean that there isn't any hope for me to end up on Star Wars at some point. I'm just saying, in the meanwhile, I'm going to keep doing what I'm doing to fill my creative soul until I do get hired by J.J. Abrams or Bad Robot or Disney to make these, sci-fi action kind of or action kind of things.
And I think what you're doing is exactly what we need to do. If sometimes people don't know what they need until they see it. And so we keep in our minds like, okay, well, if I just position myself, in the right place, which you did. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, that's exactly it. Yeah. I positioned myself to be in the right place at the right. I moved from New York to LA. I didn't know anybody except for one person who is actually my friend, who's actually on The Expanse right now. And she was awesome, and she took me in and whatever. But she was like really the only person other than my family in Orange County. If you know anything about LA, is kind of far away, that I knew in LA. So I tried to position myself in the right place, and that didn't happen for me. I mean, it still hasn't happened for me at the level I would like it to. There gets to be a point where you have to stop waiting for someone to give you permission, because that's what it means. While you're waiting, because something hasn't happened, it means that you're waiting for someone else to give you the opportunity. And there was one thing that someone said to me one time, which was really, it's always stuck in my head, where, there was a downturn in the economy. It was way back, way back, one of those, the internet bubble had popped or something like that. It was way back then. And my friend, he was looking for, he was out of work and whatever. And, he goes, yeah, I got to go out there and make some opportunity. And I'm like, well, that's the way to approach it. It's like, so like, I'm not, you can't, I think that, if you are making your opportunity, that means that that people will see that, something will come of it, and more opportunities will come. That's when more opportunities will come, because, I get it. I don't look like a science fiction or an action star. I and you can't see me now, but I mean, I kind of don't have that, Charlize Theron look. I don't have the, Angelina Jolie look. I don't have the who else is in action movie? I don't, I don't have the Regina King look. You know what I mean? Yeah. And by the way, Regina King didn't used to look like an action star, and then until she made them make her look like an action star. Do you know what I'm saying? Yep. So until they get used to me looking like an action star or someone supposed to be, a silicone face, which I would love to wear silicone faces, by the way. You're just gonna have to just put yourself out there and say, see, this is what I can look like. There's nothing wrong with this look. It's actually very, it's actually very applicable, because I've just showed you how that could work. And so, I think, wait, don't get me wrong. I love the way Charlize Theron looks like in,
I'm sure there's nothing wrong with that, but you want the opportunity. And as you're saying, sometimes people they don't realize what they need until it's right in front of them. Right. And what you're doing is, I think, what a lot of people need the permission in their minds to do. Like, just, if you want it, go make it. And then when people see you, that we have the term, in the film world, called proof of concept. So, you can try to talk to people and say, here's my log line, here's my great pitch, whatever. And some people are like, I don't get it. And then you show them, the 2-minute clip and they're like, that's it. So they had the conversation with, what was it, Whiplash, I think it was, where they just couldn't get this guy's script.
As soon as he made it. Yeah. As soon as he made it, and then, then it was a go for this Academy.
And then it was a go.
Feature. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's what you're doing. And, I want to talk a little bit more about, so you made the decision to go out to LA because, hey, this is you are serious. This is the work that you want to do. And now you've also said, okay, hey, well, let's produce the ideas. Where did you get the idea for the work that you're doing now?
You mean Moon? Are we talking about Moon now?
Let's talk about Moon. Right? Talk about Moon.
So Moon is a short film. It's a 9-pager. It was literally, so when I first started like jumping the gun and being like, oh, I'll make my own movies, which literally was just me. Sorry, there's a lot of devices are going off in the background, and I apologize for that. But
it's humanity, and that's fine. Humanity.
But Moon was one of the very first ideas that had come to my head. Probably the second one, actually. I made my first one, and this was my second script, so many years ago, and then I actually didn't know how to finish it. So I struggled over it for a month, and then because I'm not that, and I certainly wasn't back then, not that proficient as a writer, and I was even less so back then. But I just ignored it completely until this summer when my computer broke. I mean, paperweight dead. And I had to transfer files to my new computer, and I was transferring this file. I'm like, oh, this thing. And I opened it up and reread it. And as soon as I read it again after all these years, I was like, oh, I know how to finish this. Yeah. 10 minutes later, it was done. Like literally, it was just like one of those things, like bing, done. And it was done. So, it was so weird because 2 days later, I get there was the deadline call for Women in Media's camaraderie program. Mm-hmm. And I'm very close to Women in Media. I volunteer for their events all the time because I believe in their mission. And so I was very familiar. Yeah. So I was familiar with their program from last year, and I'm like, oh, this would be perfect for Women in Media. And of course, and so I submitted it, and now they're helping me make it. Yeah. So, it kind of just worked out. Yeah.
Want to hear more fantastic shows like this one? Visit blackwomenpodcasting.com, the only podcast directory and platform exclusively featuring the voices of Black women across the globe. Listen to experts in business, relationships, spirituality, culture, and more. blackwomenpodcasting.com.
So a few things I want to pull from that, and just so that the audience can kind of really hear this amazing gem. First of all, you had confidence in yourself and in your own story to just say, let's produce this. So there's an investment that you're making. You're making an investment of time, and then you're making an investment in writing, which you said, I'm not that proficient of a writer. I don't think anybody writing feels proficient. Right? I think we're just happy that someone can understand what we've put on the paper. And so the fact that you still had the faith enough in your desire, right? So you're like, okay, I have an idea, put it up, the computer dies, here's Moon, and then seeing it again, because sometimes we do need to just put things down, right? to have the fresh eyes, to have the life experience, to get it, right? Then pulling it back up and looking at it and not just throwing it away. Sometimes we throw things away too quickly, right?
Yeah, I completely.
And not just throwing it away and just saying, let's see what it is. And you already, there's so many gems from your experience. You already were in a position because you had already been helping other people. You aligned with an organization that you had an affinity to, and you helped them. And now, of course, you get the return, and you get to have this great, unusual story told from the perspective of a woman, told from the perspective of your life. And I say that by just saying that your life experience is what is informing the story. And we get to benefit because there's a new story. So, so.
I mean, I would like to add to that, Narissa, that at the time I didn't think much of it, but someone pointed it out and I was like, oh, maybe. And now as time has passed a little bit more. Now, just to give some timeline, for those of you watching, not immediately, but years from now, we're at the very end of the COVID pandemic, and the COVID pandemic for us started in February of last year, and this was finished in July. Okay, so right in the middle of right in the heart of the COVID pandemic, but also what was going on was the whole, just the explosion of anger from all the Black folks getting killed, George Floyd and Breonna Taylor, and
so many others,
but those,
so many
those
others
were the ones that were really happening right at that moment.
Right.
And by the way, I live in downtown LA, and the LA protests literally were happening outside my building.
Wow.
In downtown LA, continuously. Shit was being set on fire. My neighborhood the next day, they were boarding up everything, as well as glass everywhere, or some places, not everywhere, but some places. But I'm kind of not in the heart of downtown LA. Downtown LA is very big. If for those you don't know, the downtown LA is very big. So there's the heart where it mostly happened, and I was kind of more on the outskirts of that. So I didn't get all of it, but it starts kind of right in my area because I'm only 2 blocks from the police station, the headquarters, the LAPD headquarters. So all this stuff was going on, and I think that because of the isolation, I'd already spent. I was a very big believer of the isolation, of self-isolating, and regardless of whether you're infected or not. So I'd been in self-isolation. I had spent all this time with myself. It was just me and my dog. Here and then, this stuff was blowing up, and people are dying needlessly, and not just from police brutality, but also just everywhere in the world, and having leaders who didn't care about it, especially in our country. Just everybody's anger was just boiling over, and I think that if I look back upon it, Moon finished because the emotions were right there at the top. It was easy to just kind of be, oh, here it is, because I don't want to tell the story of Moon, because there's a funny thing. I told the story verbally to my sister before, but she was about to read it. But my sister, being my sister, was like, well, what's it about? And so I gave her the log line. She goes, no, but what's it about? So I told her the whole story. And then she read the script, and she loved the script. And she goes, I really wish you hadn't told me what the story was about. I'm like, you're the one who...
But you asked.
But she asked. I know now not to actually tell the story, but I just kind of skirt around it, try not to give any spoilers about it. But it really it's very lighthearted, and yet it's a very heavy drama, and it does deal with death, senseless death, and loss, and that kind of stuff. And
but don't tell us anymore. Don't tell us anymore.
And
we will see it. But
again, I'm just relating to say that I think that without the death and the senseless loss of what was going on, exactly, and me actually being in the middle of it and experiencing it for myself, even though I wasn't brutalized and I didn't die from COVID, but I was living in this thing of, why is this happening? Like this constant, like, why is this happening? Why aren't you doing something about this?
Yeah, I think has been the senseless death,
It's senseless.
It's senseless deaths in 2020, I think, were the thing that were just the most horrifying. And I think, just the sheer number of deaths in 2020 that didn't have to happen, and that happening already, and then this horrifying experience in May that was videotaped, and one more senseless death. I think that, like, it just, the disparities and everything. So I can imagine feeling the being witness to something like that. At least for me, it was horrifying, but definitely I understand the fodder for the movie.
Well, I mean, it's just horrible. You know what was almost just as bad? Was so much the lack of compassion from the other people, from some of the people that were alive. And I live in a very it's not trendy, but just restaurant filled neighborhood, because it's downtown LA, and we like our restaurants, and we have some of the greatest food in LA, and there are people walking around the streets. They're not from our neighborhood because it's traditionally known for people coming outside to visit our restaurants without wearing masks, or if they are, they take it off and they're eating outside and they're like, we're fine. And, meanwhile, there's a pile of 8 of them on a table together. And I'm like, I know y'all don't live with each other. Do you know what I mean? And they're laughing and shouting and screaming and taking up the whole sidewalk. And meanwhile, I walk my dog on the other side of the street. It's like, and I'm like, are we that not cognizant or not compassionate? Now, again, there is no data relating outdoor dining with the spike in cases, but I really can't imagine there was a spike in cases for no reason. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's been a very interesting study in humanity, and for just as many people as are experiencing the selfishness and the senselessness, there are, I would say, what has given me hope is that there are just as many people who are like, this is not the way that we're going to move forward. This is not the way that life is going to move forward. I am going to be something different. And, so I think storytelling is part of that, being able to start helping people's imaginations grasp something other than what we're seeing, because I love the thought of science fiction. I love the thought of action, because all of those things are us moving towards something other than what we're seeing,
Right. So, no, I mean, that's the best part of science fiction is the infinite possibility.
Yeah.
Right? That's why I love science fiction. It's literally the infinite possibility of what it could be. So, and yes, by the way, Narissa, having said that, I will say that the behavior, I have noticed the behavior in downtown LA changing, and where almost everyone I see walking down the street is wearing a mask, which is awesome. So thank you, and it's showing in our numbers, which are now really
declining.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's they one of the statistics said that 1 in 6 restaurants in the United States had to close, like, permanently. So to think about how much livelihood, how many things we take for granted. I mean, those are how many families, don't have a place to work anymore. I feel like, there are two sides of it, which is like, wow, I think people don't really get how much this is affecting and will continue to affect people, because we may be moving towards controlling the actual disease, but the impact has yet to be seen.
And so, and also we're talking about the impact with Black Lives Matter and all the police brutality is starting to also shake out too now. I mean, the administration has completely changed. The government has completely changed, and we saw what happened in January, which was just like, wow. I mean, it's not like it wasn't there before, but thank God, like, the Band-Aid has been ripped off.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
So it's like, yes, we still have those kinds of issues. Yes, we do. And your country probably does too, but your Band-Aid's still on right now.
Yeah. Well, we're moving forward, which is great. I mean, so let me ask you a question. So as an actor moving into directing and creating your own work, I would say, like, I wonder, how much of your acting head do you bring into directing?
All the time, all of it.
Mm-hmm.
So let's start off with the position of director.
Sure.
What is the job of the director? Well, yes, you're supposed to have a global vision of how you want to present the story, a global point of view of how you want to present the story. But in the end, did you know that the only person that can talk to the actors is the director? The only person who is allowed, literally allowed. So the DP is not allowed to talk to that's the chain of command. That's the traditional chain of command, because you don't want too many. You don't want the DP saying, "I want a sadness that has to deal with, a sadness that has to deal with, your baby dying. I want," and then the costume designer said, "Oh, you should have a sadness that deals with that's more a sadness that's more about your the food that you ate and how it made you sick." And then
who knows, the lighting guy, the grip
person is like, I want a sadness that's
grip.
no, and that's why traditionally there's only one person telling you the actor how to be acting, and that's their directing. So if you're not directing your actors, you're failing in your job. So I always think about, as an actor, as a director coming from the acting position, how would I explain the emotion that I want? Again, if I want the emotion to be sadness, what kind of sadness? Is it a sadness because my dog died yesterday, or because my dog died 3 years ago? That's a different type of sadness, right? Is it a sadness that deals with my dog dying, or is it a sadness with dealing that I didn't get my Amazon package yesterday? That's a different type of sadness. So the more precise that you can be about what the scene means at that time, at that point in time, the better it is for the actor.
Interesting.
And how can you explain it? So So the best way I've discovered to explain stuff is to completely know the backstory of the characters so that you can have stuff to. So I'm sad because my dog died 3 years ago, and this reminds me, and this current issue that we're talking about right now reminds me of my dog dying 3 years ago, right? Or I'm sad because my grandma died 5 years ago, right after she turned 100. But before she was able to go to the big party that we planned for her, and that's why I can't go to this party.
Hey, this is a great episode, right? Want to carry the insight from our show wherever you go? Visit myjoyisvaluable.com for the best resources that we've gathered that are inspired by expert guests. Find support for your business, tools to organize your life, and more. That's myjoyisvaluable.com.
So it's the qualities.
Right. There are different qualities, yeah. Different kind of, you can have the color red, but is it red rosé red, or is it, like
vermilion
pie red, or is it, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah. So it's interesting. So that it sounds like it gives a certain color to the communication that you have. So then,
the emotional palette is, and all actors know about this emotional palette for sure.
Mm-hmm. That's great. So that's great. So I mean, then it sounds like also that you would have, especially because, and I noticed that you didn't speak anything about it being an actor or director, but you do have, as an actor, special skills that most actors don't have.
Well, I would hope to think all actors would like to learn about something other than just the technique of acting.
Right.
Because that makes you a full person. I think that as an actor, what makes successful actors successful is how full they are as a person in real life. Because then you can draw upon, you could say, okay, this person that I'm acting takes this part of my life, and this person that I'm acting in this show is this part of my life.
Right.
This, you know what I mean? So you can do things, and I'm assuming that you're talking about my physical skills. So,
yeah. Absolutely.
I'm really big into action movies, and I felt that as an actor long ago that if I wanted to do action movies, which I did, that I didn't want to just be in action movies. I really felt like there's, because I grew up on Hong Kong action movies, and in Hong Kong action movies, actors actually.
What's your favorite one? What was your favorite?
Are you talking about old Hong Kong or new?
I knew it. I was like, she's not going to be able to pick. So let's go with. First of all, my
favorite movie of all time is Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon. So, but but there are lots of other Hong Kong style movies, and there's old Hong Kong. There's Shaw Brothers Hong Kong, which is not Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon. Is not Shaw Brothers Hong Kong. Shaw Brothers Hong Kong is the kind of stuff that you watch on Saturday afternoon, but there's so much more than what Americans get, that Shaw Brothers made. So one of my heroes growing up before Michelle Yeoh is
right.
Right. I'm so happy for her that she has a global presence now in the world, which is fantastic. But there were people in Hong Kong who never made it globally because there was no internet at the time. If you look up in IMDb, I think her name is in English it's Judy Ling.
Ling?
I'm pretty sure.
Ling?
She is an IMDb because I looked her shit up. Let me see if I can actually find it.
Sure. So what do you love about her work?
Well, she was the first so there was a time, I mean, it was super cool because Hong Kong has always had females in their
You know what? I've noticed that, which I think is interesting that we haven't quite caught up. Women in action is still a what's it called? It's still a novelty.
Well, they're getting better now for sure.
Yeah, kind of.
I can't find her. I'll post it. Maybe post it in the
So okay, so how about this to make it easier for you? Because Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, yes. To make it easy for you, what story do you wish you had told? Which film do you wish? You know what? If I had it, you know, I would have loved to have been involved in this story, or I wish I would have told this story, or.
You know, one day, you know, it's so funny. This is really only just popped in my head just now. One day I would love to remake one of those old Shaw Brothers movies.
Okay.
Maintain and anyone will tell you this about the old. They were put out. The rate of production that the Shaw Brothers had in Hong Kong, it was like, you know, a movie a day kind of a thing. So so you know, things were lacking in it. The action was not one of them, but other things were lacking in it, like story or.
Of course.
It wasn't always it felt like it was the same story over and over again, but it still felt great. It was still great to watch. But if you think about it, it was the same story all over again. You killed my mother, you killed my father, you killed my master. I'm gonna go learn how to be a kung fu master, and I come back and I take revenge. That's all of them. You know, also the acting wasn't so great, but the action was always, it felt to me, always great. But I would love to remake one of those old Shaw Brother movies. There's one, Jackie Chan's first movie that he ever made was Snake and Eagle's Shadow, where he was the lead. And it was a phenomenal movie to watch. It was wildly popular. It did really, really well. Jet Li's first movie, Shaolin Temple, it was also freaking amazing. Some terrible, you know, kind of acting, whatever, but, you know. And then, of course, Judy Ling's stuff, which I'll get you the right name. I'll get you the real name.
So here's my question about that then, because we're saying, and I've noticed that kind of with the action, it tends to be like they're more action, less acting, right?
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. The acting wasn't that great. The acting
is that part of the thing though? Like, is that part of the let's give you a slightly corny story so that you'll focus on the action? I mean, is it really that, you think?
Well, you can't deny it. Watching great action is fun.
Yeah.
You know, you can't deny it. I mean, you know, that's why people watch, I don't know, The Matrix or Fast and Furious, you know.
Right.
I tell you, the Fast and Furious, it's not the thing that I love, but people love the action in it. But you know, and yet the story is obvious, same kind of a thing.
It's horrible. The story was horrible. But yes, they got up to 8, I think. I think they're up to
still doing fabulous, right? So but you love watching those cars drifting out, you know?
Yeah.
So there's nothing wrong with watching some great action, or especially when you have camera techniques, you have to be able to capture that.
Yeah.
And you know, wow, look at that shot that they have, you know, like.
Yes. The shots are amazing.
Yeah, Tom Cruise spinning a bike on one.
Oh my God, the shots are amazing.
And shooting at the same time, you know, and like, how did they get that shot, and how did they do that without crashing anybody or whatnot?
The first time I saw a Russian arm, and I was like, "What is that?" And I was like, "Oh, can I drive that?" In my dreams, I'm a NASCAR driver,
Right.
I know how to drive a 16. I know how to drive a 26-foot truck.
Wow. Okay.
I know how to drive a stick shift. In my other life, I'm going to be a NASCAR driver, because that, like, for me, when I was watching like all of those things, and then I was on a film, like a big film set, and I saw Russian Arrow, and I was like, oh, what is that? Well,
there's a series you should watch. I think it's on YouTube, called Stunt Stories. It's done by Corey Eubanks, and he is one of the drivers. He is also a coordinator for a lot of the driving things that go on, and he's got some great stories, and he's got some great, BTS footage on how they shot it. It's phenomenal.
See, that's me.
Yeah, you wouldn't imagine it, how much coordination it takes to do those kind of big feature film shots.
But the what you end up seeing on screen, and I think that's the other thing as well, that why everybody really wants to go back into a movie theater, because that big like scale of, and then you really feel like you're in it. And so, I think at some point we'll figure it out.
Yeah.
Okay, so a few more questions and then we'll.
Oh wait, I don't even think I answered that last question. So,
so the movie. Well, you told me that the movie that you'd love to have made or remake is the Shaw Brothers, and we did talk about your. Yeah,
I'd love to do a Shaw Brothers movie. Mm-hmm. Keep the action intact, but redo all the acting. And really bring up the production value of kind of some of the they did those horrible kind of like what do you call it,
melodrama,
vaudeville sound effects, and I was just like, don't do that, you're ruining it, I mean, and just kind of let the naturalness of the actual story happen.
I think that's what I really loved about when you said Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon. That's like one of my top as well. And what I loved about it was both the action and the story were phenomenal.
That's what I talk about all the time. There's a trifecta, in my opinion. After watching that, I realized there's a trifecta of good action, good acting, and good art. And
it was gorgeous.
Right. And you have to, if you meet all three, then you meet, in my opinion, what a perfect movie is.
Yeah, right? It was gorgeous, because that was the other thing as well. It was gorgeous. The acting was amazing. So it was a great story, of course. And that's the other thing as well. It must be interesting to take the story that you've written, right? And I think that's the thing that all of us struggle with who are creative. You have this idea, right? And then you have to take what's here and then put it on paper. And then that's the first, because, sometimes the translation works. And then now taking what you've thought of and you've written into what gets produced. How much do you have to let go when you get to that process?
I let go from the very beginning. Because I believe in people's abilities. I believe in people. I believe that everyone has something to offer. So like I made this poster. I made this.
Right.
And that's just a place to start. But I've told everybody that, if you don't want to shoot the moon like that, then tell me. Make this better. Because honestly, you only make me look like the genius.
That's true.
Yeah. But here's the starting point. The starting point is here. There's a bench. There's my dog on the bench.
Wow.
Okay. That's the starting point. And honestly, I've gotten a lot of traction just with this poster, because people are like, what's going on in that thing? You've got a bench with a dog on it on the moon looking at this huge, gorgeous Earth. What does that mean? And I'm like, read the script, So I like to let it go immediately. I don't give direction until someone presents me their idea first. And then I'm like, you and honestly, typically almost every time I'd say within 1 or 2 tries, they really get it. I mean, they really get it on their own without me saying anything or having one picture like this. And all I have to do is kind of just tweak it, maybe 1%. You know what I mean?
That also shows a sense of trust, so the fact that you've moved from, I said, well, how quickly do you let it go? You said immediately. That trust, I think, is essential for collaboration. So how do you select the people that you work with?
And that's the better question.
Yeah.
That's the better question. So I am thrilled to be able to say that the team, and we've picked most of our keys already, because that's part of the we're way early, but part of the camaraderie program is they ask you to pick your keys early on, and so we've picked all of our keys already, and
so keys for
the
audience.
Sorry, department heads.
Yes, thank you.
For people who don't make films. So you have departments, like you have the makeup department, you have the special effects department, you have the stunts department, you have the camera department, and the keys are your department heads. It's the same word. It's the same word. You can use keys, you can use department head, blah, blah. So like, for example, if you talk about the costumes department, there's the costume designer, that's the department head, and the costume designer has all their assistants underneath it. And they're doing things like also, bringing fabrics and color, like the costume designer will lay out some colors and stuff like that, or lay out some fabrics. And then the assistants will go out and try to find things that look like that in that world. I'm not sure. I'm not a very good costume designer, so I think that's how they run their department. So I tend to. It's so funny because someone asked me this. So part of the camaraderie program is that they have this networking thing, and this year was online, but last year was in person. They have a speed dating networking thing where the directors are there and they meet a whole ton of people in all departments, and then they ask questions and we try to get a feel for people and whatnot. And one person asked me, "How do you pick people?" The same question, and I said, I think it was a very surprising answer because I said I pick people based upon their energy, because in the end, if you want to be a costume designer and you love doing costumes, you're going to have some sort of skill already. You're going to have some skill. And one of the biggest problems, I think, with Hollywood when they pick people is that they said, "Oh, Toy, you're a tiger mom, so I'll keep casting you as a tiger mom." And I'm like, I'm actually more than just a tiger mom, but if you want to, I guess you can keep casting me and hiring me. Well, we've seen you as a tiger mom. You're really great, so we're just keep casting you as a tiger mom. And I'm like, well, you should see me do drama. I'm pretty good at that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I don't think that anyone goes to, if we go back to a costume design, I don't think that anyone goes to the Fashion Institute and just learns how to make jeans.
Right.
Like they learn how to design jeans, and they learn how to design evening wear, and they learn how to design footwear, and they learn how to design blah, 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 whatever. And I don't think as a person, I mean, you might have an affinity, like I have an affinity for action science fiction, but it's like Moon is not action, there's no action in it. So, I mean, no, fights and no.
Right.
But so I don't think that you should, just because someone says, someone presents you their portfolio and it just has, or someone has a resume and it says, "I've done all jeans," but they show you their portfolio. It's a lot more than jeans. I just don't believe that people are so
focused and
so one-minded about
one
kind of stuff
one note.
do. I don't believe that about anybody. Actually, I think that's pretty rare. So I'm assuming that if you are a costume designer, you love costumes, period. And you're going to be pretty good, especially if you have a resume. Okay, great. I'm just going to assume that that's baseline. That's baseline.
That's an amazing and very unusual perspective to have, because I think a lot of people are afraid, and so instead of it sets you up to take chances that other people are not going to take. So I think everybody is really, especially when they just start out and maybe they did really well at like that designer dress, and then of course everybody just keeps asking them from the dress. I think that does definitely set you up if you're leaning into energy, and that also tends to be something that women take for granted. If you're leaning into energy, then also there's also that time where the energy is not right and you have nothing else to go on. Because like if you look at the resume, you're like, well, the resume is good, but I don't know about you.
Right.
So
I try to build a team based upon building teamwork. Because again, I'm just assuming that if you have a resume, you know what you're doing, and you can jump to any style or whatever, that you'll do what's appropriate for the style. But if you can't work with the other departments, and film is so interdepartmental dependent, that it doesn't matter if you do jeans or wedding gowns, but if you don't like blue and white, then you're not going to do. If you're really going for the color pink, and you don't want to play on the team, then that's not going to help. You know what I mean?
I do. And it sounds like what also that does is that opens your vision. So if you have a great team of people, no matter what's on the resume or what's not on the resume, great energy, then everybody is, as you said, doing teamwork, right? So the energy is there to get done. So that's a great way.
I think that's really, really key. And I've run all my, I've hit on that. I hit on that trick a few years ago, like about 10 years ago in my day jobs. And it's really, really worked well for me. I mean, there's a few kind of catchphrases that you hear that remain as lessons to you as a creator of any sort, whether it's film or creating software or creating, financial analysis or anything. But, you've got to leave room for magic. And that has stuck with me, because without the magic, the magic is what takes a film from being good to being great. And that's like 2 to 3% of the mix, but that is what you call the icing on the cake, right? You got to leave room for magic. If you are like this the whole time with your project, there's no room for magic, right?
That is a great place to end. That's amazing. So tell us where we can find you. Tell us where we can find Moon eventually. And yeah.
Well, the timeline is that Moon is probably going to be shot whenever COVID is over or herd immunity occurs. We don't want to get anybody sick. We don't want to present any workman's comp liabilities either to our sponsors. So we're thinking, and that, by the way, that figure changes every week. So I can't tell you exactly when we're going to shoot, but as of today, that looks like it may be end of summer we're going to shoot. We have a phenomenal editor who says that she can edit it. I just had a meeting with her today. she says she can get the first edit out in 3 days, which is, I mean, wow, you know. But then we got a lot of VFX stuff to do because it does take place on the moon. I will give out that spoiler. That's why the poster looks like this. It does take place on the moon. So we do have a lot of VFX. But you know, it's a very simple VFX. It's not like, you know, it's not like X.
Don't give us anything. You don't have to give us anything.
Right. We'll see we're hoping that like final color and delivery actually ends up sometime before the end of the year, and after that, you know, it's off to the festivals.
That's great.
So look for it in the festivals in 2022.
Excellent. So tell us your ats, all of your profiles.
My ats.
Your ats.
I am at Play with Toy. That should be it should be easy to remember.
It is.
The other one to remember is at Moon the Film. That's
beautiful.
Easy to remember. I'm really big into easy because my brain can't handle anymore. But yeah, we're at Play with Toy everywhere, and the film specifically is at Moon the Film everywhere. And we're gonna do we're even on TikTok, so we're gonna do like a little moon dance.
Oh, awesome. Awesome. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for listening to the Be Your Own Answer podcast. Share this episode with someone who needs it. Find us at beyourownAnswer.com.